Good hello, and thanks for watching another Sunday case study. My name is Pisces Palmist, reading the hands of celebrities each week, telling you all you want to know, purely for entertainment and gossip needs, through the hands alone. This week, I'm looking at Errol Flynn, the Hollywood Golden Age actor. Why? You might be thinking, well, that's a bit of a leap, bit of a throwback. Who is this man? He played Robin Hood. He played lots of swashbuckling characters in the golden age of Hollywood. Now, I'm on the social media kind of website forum. It's a bit like Reddit. It's known as Quora with a Q. And I answer lots of questions regarding palmistry. And I kind of came across very randomly an article about this golden age actor, Errol Flynn. Uh, Pertaining to apparently a mansion that he had where he had lots of uh, peepholes and secret sort of passageways where he would spy on people. Apparently, he was a voyeur. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I wonder if I can see that in his hands. And what does that look like? I wonder if that's true. So, what can we see in his hands? Initially, I thought, well, the Mercury finger doesn't look crooked. But what I noticed straight off the bat was the alignment. The finger leanings are a bit odd. Um, no, I don't straight off the bat see any kind of perverted sexual leanings, but I do see the potential for bipolar disorder. I think I need Loki's help with this one. It's a very rare sort of finger leaning formation. I've actually got Ava sitting across from me on the sofa, and she's disapproving of me having a little cuddle with Loki. Um, the finger leaning arrangement here is very peculiar. It's very unusual. It's uncommon. It shows actually rather than thinking about considering others and his environment and the thoughts and feelings of others, he's actually his sense of right and wrong is relying on his own sense of self. And we see that by Saturn leaning towards Jupiter at the tip. And it's normally it's the other way around. It's very unusual. As well as that, Apollo tends to lean towards Mercury. Now, I wouldn't normally just sort of take at face value, at Palm's value, from one image alone. But when we look at this as well, it gives us a bit of a sort of clearer insight. You can actually see, and I can appreciate this a bit blurry. All right, buddy. That we've got, he didn't really want to help me, did he? Apollo at the tip leans towards Mercury, actually quite sharply. Now, the tip of Apollo pertains to it shows us what we find attractive, natural beauty, aesthetics, and appreciation for the beautiful things in life. Now, it's leaning quite sharply, quite dramatically towards Mercury. And I would say Mercury on the right hand, it appears actually a little bit crooked here. On the left, not so much. So it's almost like a development of crooked nature. Perhaps his power got to his head. But this, it really shows the potential for voyeurism, I would have thought. It's in the left hand, so it's very secretive. It's internal, whereas we don't really see that in the right hand, which is perhaps why we're not seeing it in this image here. Really, I should start with first things first. When I look at this hand type here, it is certainly someone who is very good with his hands. Is very materialistically minded. And on that note, notice how Saturn bends towards Jupiter at the second phalanx. And this is all about materiality, mathematics. It is it's utilizing statistics to fit. It's investing. So he's relying on himself. He's thinking about himself, and it's actually something of a bit of a self-centered, but certainly a sign of a big achiever because he's going to, he's he's placing his trust and his effort in himself in order to make for himself. So this is certainly someone who is highly capable and independent, a moneymaker, an achiever. He is highly charismatic. He's very literally strong, very strong indeed. And he genuinely, um, it's a bit of a strange one that Saturn leans towards Jupiter, given that Apollo, the Apollonian strengths here are remarkably strong. It's well developed. It's very, very long. It's, well developed in its tip. And all the fingertips are. So he is certainly someone who is very responsive to and receptive to that information that's constantly being received. He bounces off others and has a big personality and is very open to experiences and loves to live in the moment. And this rounded nature of the finger shows us someone who is very lively and loves everything that's kind of magical about life. He lives for that magic. And as soon as that's gone, as soon as that leaves the room, the conversation, or, as soon as the possibility dies down for having fun, he's out of there. He's bored. He's moving on. And the same can be said for relationships as well. This is someone who becomes stifled, becomes bored, and cannot abide by routine, structure, monotony. That's what it represents to this person. He is a conic hand. This is someone who really, someone as iconic as this, with this extreme sort of rounded features here. They're so soft and bulbous. It's kind of it's such a striking hand in that sense that it's so remarkably conic. This is someone who has an extreme ability to adapt in the moment, to respond in the moment, and would make a superb athlete. Having those kind of reflexes, but to make up for that kind of need to be stimulated, all five senses for this person, he needs to be stimulated. He needs to be aroused. He needs good taste. He needs to be surrounded by. He needs to literally experience through the five senses all the time, all that he can. It's not a desire for this person. He kind of literally needs and craves excitement and adventure, and it's likely why he fell into roles of adventure. It makes perfect sense. He was remarkably intelligent. And, the headline is long, it's straight. This is certainly someone who could handle a lot of pressure and responsibility. The Mercury finger is long, it's just about on the long side. It is long. It is absolutely a little bit low set, but it's certainly long. The thumb strikes me as something as odd because the shape of it's turned outwards a little bit. It's turned ever so slightly facing us. It's and I'm not convinced entirely by this picture alone. Um, but I don't like it because it feels selfish to me. It feels unable to feel and consider the feelings of others. And that's not actually a great trait for an actor to have anyway. But despite this, I feel like there's it's sort of a potential for narcissism, potential kind of psychopathic traits there. I don't love it, and that compounded with this kind of straight heart line, it backs it up a little bit. So I'm not happy about that. It's unfortunate. I expect there were lots of people who were harmed by his persistent needs to explore um, and satiate his own baser desires. This thumb here, it's kind of pinched in, it's wasted. So he has exceptional diplomacy skills. He's a strong persuader. He's very able to um, communicate and express his message in the moment, and he knows what to say and how to say it. He can read others very well, and he's very able to kind of become the person he needs to in the moment to get what he needs. He's an exceptional organizer and planner of other people's business, but not so much his own. Which is probably something of a downfall. This sort of pinched in wasting of logic here is interesting because it creates this kind of pent up. Um, there's something of a rage here. There's and I'm not necessarily saying that he took this out on others physically even, or it could be that he had this built up um energy that he sought release, and perhaps he did this in his own time, in his own way. Perhaps he beat himself up, quite literally, or figuratively, if you know what I mean. He perhaps he was his own worst critic in that way. But there's certainly some pent up emotion and feeling and anger here. He was quite an angry person. I'm not sure if everyone saw that. The Lunar Mount is remarkable. The headline doesn't stretch into it so much. The headline's very straight. It's very sort of black and white thinking, clear cut, uh, and because there's this almost sort of lacking of imagination in certain respects. I think it's there inherently, subconsciously it's there, but there isn't that kind of fall on the abstract. There isn't that ability to conjure up imagery and create in that respect. So it creates something of a spontaneity of subconscious um, need for imaginative stimuli. He probably had something of an obsession with water, and he probably didn't recognize it either. There's something. There's this. It's overdeveloped. It's low hanging. There's so much there's so much need here to satisfy um, the you know the desires. I wonder if he had some fetishes there, relating to bodily fluids. But one thing that does strike me as odd is, with these kind of golden age Hollywood actors, you always see the ability to sing. If there's a strong ability, an angle of pitch here, and there's always an angle of time and proficiency. They're always triple threats. They are singers, dancers, and actors. You always see it with them. And what you always see, almost always anyway, in today's Hollywood actors is not necessarily, you don't see that they don't have to be triple threats at all. But you almost always see something of a short Jupiter finger, and that I think is because of conditioning. The media is a very, very different beast in this day and age, and it's hugely oppressive, and it can crush our ego. And also, it gives us a sense of inadequacy, and it's almost always compensated for by the kind of need to control physically, and that's when you see kind of drug taking, womanizing. I don't see that here. It's interesting because I don't see that so much with these golden age Hollywood actors. His sense of self is tremendously well developed. So much so, it's it, it's almost a superiority complex, and there's almost something of a deluded nature about him. Uh, if he wasn't so extremely intelligent and charismatic and skillful in his personal nature, I don't know if he would have gotten where he did. And that kind of that almost delusional sense of self, he kind of persuaded others and convinced others as to who he was in a sense and what he could do. I'm amazed, at just the sheer length of the Jupiter finger here, and you almost always see. such a long Jupiter finger in conjunction with a long Mercury finger. You'll always see that with tenor singers, opera singers. Um, and this isn't a dramatically long Mercury finger, but it is long. So I wouldn't say that his voice is, stand out, but I do think he has no issue with truly uh, putting himself in the spotlight and vocalizing from within. He is very comfortable in his own skin, which is really refreshing, actually. Now, despite this being something of, it's an old image. For what it is, it's good quality considering everything. You can see the success line here. It's tremendous, particularly from the age of 53 and onwards. But it really begins here, at least what we can see of it, from 35. It's more potent than his fate line itself. And this is actually a sign of midlife crisis when the success line takes over from the fate line altogether. It's not to say that it's impossible for this person to pursue a sense of success through their efforts, but their purpose and their path is something that's he feels it's not so much there anymore. So he's sort of wondering and trying to find meaning. Now, it's not to say that he doesn't have fate lines, because I'm sure he does. I can see something of one there and there. It's just not nearly as strong as his success. And again, these are extremely materialistic hands. He is incredibly, down to earth in this way. What can I get out of this situation financially? What's the point otherwise? And I feel that there's a sense of emptiness through a lack of satisfaction, essentially, because the constant desire and achievement of accumulating wealth, after a time, it's not going to mean anything anymore. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't actually seem to last. There seems to be maybe 65. It really peters out here. And you would think that someone with such an immense, legendary track record, royalties would keep coming in. He wouldn't need to work. But it seems that something went horribly wrong here. It started out so well, and particularly from 50s, early 50s and onwards, right up to maybe 65, it just disappears. It's like he's really had some sort of identity crisis about his own sexual prowess, and I think he was a real victim of a midlife crisis, because that feeling. But for men, when their ability to perform, figuratively and literally, starts to wane after, once men start to decline, as it were, or after their prime, that feeling of an inability to perform, it really fundamentally um, starts to make them question and can potentially cause something of an obscurity in mental health and their direction. And there's absolutely instability here. There's certainly mental health issues. I am almost certain this person had bipolar disorder, and I think he may have been um, what's the word, a psychopath. It's their psychopathic tendencies are certainly, I'm sure, bipolar disorder, but also he lost his way and became a victim of the midlife crisis. In palmistry, part of the key is to look for that which stands out and find its root cause. On the left hand here, notice Jupiter is dramatically short, but all along we've been looking at the right hand with a dramatically long Jupiter finger. So his sense of self was something of make believe. He absolutely provided people with a false sense of how he portrayed, how he felt about himself. It was all a guise all along, and he had significant mental health issues that were never diagnosed, recognized, or treated. And ultimately, these were his downfall. I suppose, the sad thing is that he desperately needed guidance. I don't I don't think he was a bad person. I think he was lost and confused and utterly misguided. And I think a lot of that was partly himself, and fame has a way of doing that. It seems so. It's really sad, actually. But there we go. That's my palm reading for this Sunday. Let me know what your thoughts are. Perhaps you know more about this chap. I don't really know anything um, more about this guy. I mean, I know that his accountant really fleeced him in later life, and I think that has something to do with the lacking of the sun line there from sort of 65 onwards, it seems. But other than that, I really don't know all that much about this chap. I just thought this would be a really interesting case study, in particular as an example of bipolar and severe sort of mental health. Um, and actually, it kind of uncovered something of an example as to a victim of a midlife crisis. So let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Let me know as well who you'd like me to read the hands of next Sunday. See you next one.